certainly I needed to bring something to the table which was believably medieval. But, as Ridley said to me on numerous occasions, there's no prizes for authenticity, but there can be prizes for perfect storytelling.
When does a film need music, and why? And also, can music clarify if someone's telling the truth? Welcome to the Movie FAQ. I'm Fernando Ayuso, and this is a new section by Astor Score where we're going to try to find answers and showcase the art behind the films and their narrative. In this case, we'll talk about The Last Duel, directed by Ridley Scott and written by Nicole Holofcener, together with two of the movie stars.
And the Oscar goes to Ben Affleck and Matt Damon! Yeah!
Thank you so much!
They tell us the true story around the last trial by combat in medieval France, when the knight Jean de Carouge challenged his old friend Jacques Legris to a duel after claiming he raped his wife, fighting both to death. It's a story told from multiple points of view and divided into different chapters that show each character's own perspective regarding the events they are facing. Thereby, the screenwriters take the iconic narrative technique used by Akira Kurosawa on his 1950 masterpiece, Rashomon, and usually called under the name of the movie as the Rashomon effect. It's really worth noticing how in The Last Duel the filmmakers get to capture the essence of every character's perspectives, their inside truth or how they see themselves, and the outside one, how they are seen by others. Knowing all that and assuming this is a character-driven story, many questions spring to my mind regarding the score. In this case scenario, is the music needed at all? And if they use it, what can it add to the narrative of the film? Should the composer just stay out of the director's way? Or on the contrary, he may help us to understand every protagonist's inner psychological complexity, their motivations and fears, and also increase what we perceive as their unique truth. This is clearly a film where self-indulgence plays a big role. That's quite clear if we focus on the acting. We realize that in one scene, a character may be open and pleasant, and in the same event, but told from another point of view, this person ends up being the very opposite. But also, we could know all that if we pay attention to what the score is telling. Thus, the first two questions, whether or not the music is needed and what the score can add to the dramatic arc or to the narrative, are answered in the very first seconds of the film, and what it does is tremendously valuable. The music introduces the main protagonist, Marguerite de Carouge, played by Jodie Comer. But before diving into the score by Harry Gregson Williams, let's stop for a while and focus a little bit, just as an aside, on that incredible topic that is, an art in its form, the character introduction. Or how directors and screenwriters tell us everything we need to know about one person, about their personality, status, aims and fears, and along etc., just in one scene or even a simple shot. They manage to do all this by making use of the cinematic tools at their disposal. The design of a set or a precise framing can overshadow a character or even make him invisible. Singular costumes at specific moments or a few phrases or gestures can summarize in just a few minutes or seconds the essence of a character, no matter how complex this may be. Let me take you just a moment to the artistic universe of, for me, one of the most successful filmmakers on this matter, Paul Thomas Anderson. In the first sequence of his masterpiece, There Will Be Blood, we see a man in a hole digging, falling apart and getting hurt. Then we see how, being unable to walk, he crawls on the ground for what we imagine could be miles, just in order to seal a deal and cash a check. He doesn't even need to speak. We already know how ambitious, greedy, persevering he is in his goals, pushing himself and reaching unexpected limits. And if we go deeper, we'll find out even more personality traits. At the beginning of The Master, however, the director starts offering a range of situations apparently disconnected from each other that instantly defines the extravagant nature of the protagonist. In a couple of minutes, Anderson introduces the essence of Joaquin Phoenix's character, or at least the psychological qualities he wants us to know about in the first place. And last but not least, probably his best achievement introducing a character. In Punch Drunk Love, making use of production and costume design, and choosing a precise framing, he needs just one shot to define what may be an invisible man. His blue jacket is masked by the same color stripe on the wall behind, and this, together with the insecurity in the voice of the protagonist, tells us this is a common and kind of irrelevant guy. Getting all these in the blink of an eye is true genius. Coming back to The Last Duel score, you may ask, why are we talking about all these? Well, because that's exactly what Harry Gregson Williams does in the first few minutes of the film, but using music instead. When I think about music introducing a character, my mind instantly travels to a specific moment in a film that's completely different to The Last Duel, but it perfectly portrays the intentions behind its narrative and how descriptive and expressive film music can be. I'm talking about the epic 1984 comedy fantasy Gremlins, scored by Jerry Goldsmith. The legendary composer has multiple examples where he adds layers of information about things we don't necessarily see on the screen, just with the use of music. A masterful example would be First Blood. Thanks to the music, we understand right at the beginning that the protagonist is far from being the beast the police eventually force him to be. Another example would be The Wind and the Lion, where the leader of a band of insurrectionists that violently kill and kidnap people is portrayed by a majestic and honorable being. This sets a strong contradiction between the actions of a man and his aura. In Gremlins, however, Goldsmith finds the space to introduce a very secondary character, Mrs. Deagle, in just a few seconds, probably by necessity, and that's because she doesn't appear long enough to have the time for a thematic development. But Goldsmith quickly gets to emphasize what the director wants to convey. The very first time we see Mrs. Deagle on the screen, we'll listen to this theme. The old-fashioned lady is portrayed by a weird waltz played by funny synthesizers that suggest the idea that something's wrong with this character. There's something malicious about her, but also buffoonish. All this is masterfully summed up in a precise musical idea.
I want your dog.
In The Last Duel, the first thing the filmmakers do, even before emphasizing the duel that gives name to the movie, is introducing Marguerite de Carouge, the main protagonist. Ridley Scott wants us to focus on Marguerite early enough in order to clarify that there is no other option but her telling the truth.
I am telling the truth.
Just at the beginning of the film, they take us all the way to near the end of the story. At this moment, there are no chapters yet, nor subjective points of view either. What we see is a woman getting dressed and preparing herself to what's coming, and what we listen to for the first time is her theme, the music that defines her. We know nothing about the story or about her, but however, the music drives us quickly enough to understand who she is. The theme starts adding information right away.
Turn to the right, lady. Thank you.
We hear a beautiful and delicate female voice creating an evocative and intimate moment. The melody is simple and haunting, and I would say there's something mystical in the music. This first version of the theme seems an angelical rendition to what she actually is, a truthful person, and the only one in the story that can really love. After this scene, film and music fast forward to a section where tension prevails, establishing a strong and meaningful contrast with the opening theme mentioned earlier. We thus have a firm, sweet and upright character in a rough, war-ridden world. With this music and the intentional contrast, Ridley Scott wants to convey just from this point at the beginning who bears the truth in the story, this contrasting with those representing confrontation and virility, understanding virility in a pejorative sense. Listening to this first cue and the integrity it provides to the character, there's no need to clarify who's telling the truth anymore. Ridley Scott, however, does it straight away at the beginning of her story, aiming to avoid any possible doubt. Certainly, that's not the music of a liar. Harry Gregson Williams stays strong on the essence of the protagonist, and he tells us what we really need to know about her at first sight, also conditioning for good the way we're going to face the rest of the film. We will understand eventually that the music that defines her evolves to a love song devoted to what makes her feel free and alive, her son. The lyrics are in French, and they were taken from a love song called Amour me fait commencer, written by 13th century composer Thibaut de Champagne. It talks about love, more specifically the love of a man for a woman, but it seems it's been adapted and partially rewritten in order to change the subject and turn it into a love song from a mother towards her son. Because of its importance, this is clearly the main theme of the movie. We'll find numerous variations adding more information about the character, depending what version of the story we are in. But we're going to leave this much more for the second part of this video essay. So that's it. What movies do you love where music introduces a character in such an intelligent way? Tell us more about it in the comments. Also, if you want to find out more about film music, don't hesitate and go visit our website at astorscore.com, where you'll discover lots of content and specials about your favorite composers and filmmakers, both in Spanish and English. Thanks a lot for watching. I do hope you liked the video. If you did, please click the like button, that will help us a lot. And don't forget to subscribe, and we'll make more videos asking questions and trying to find answers around films and their music. See you in the second part. Cheers!